Hi, I'm Jeff Barkman and I talk about things. Thank you so much for coming to my YouTube channel. If you would be so kind as to help me grow my audience, there's two ways that you can do it. If you share this video on your social media platforms, there's an opportunity for me to get in front of people who haven't met me yet. The other thing you can do is you can hit like on this video, and then there's a higher possibility that YouTube will automatically put me in front of people who haven't met me yet. So if you do either of those things or both of those things, I'll be very appreciative. So today I want to talk about poverty and wealth. And the reason I want to talk about poverty and wealth is because I've had a crazy story coming out of agreement with the spirit of poverty and aligning more and more each day with the spirit of wealth. And actually, just like the spirit of wisdom is Jesus, the spirit of wealth is Jesus. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh no, the prosperity gospel. And while this won't really be the prosperity gospel, I do want to say that the will of God in your life is not that you would be in poverty, but that you would be empowered to build wealth, to create wealth and steward wealth. So let's dive in. I'm going to start with this phrase that I think is going to help really frame the whole talk that you're going to get right now. Neither poverty nor wealth have much to do with the number in your bank account. Actually, the number in your bank account reveals what your belief systems around poverty and wealth are. What do I mean by that? When I was in ministry school, I went to the first year of ministry school with no money. The Lord told me he wanted to prove to me that he was going to provide for me, that it's his good pleasure to provide for his son, for his sons. And I was to go with no money, and he did, and I saw tons of financial miracles over and over and over and over. It was very challenging to live miracle to miracle, but it created within me this trust in Jehovah Jireh. I got to know God as my provider, and it just kind of created internal infrastructure for me. Conversely, I was talking to someone that was in school with me in first year, and he told me, it was the beginning of the school year, and he told me that he had $50,000 in the bank account, but he was constantly afraid that he wasn't going to have enough in the future. It blew my mind. I was mildly concerned that I wasn't going to have enough in the future, but I was believing the Lord was going to come through, and so I actually was living from a place where I believed that I had unseen resources and spiritual blessings to overcome any negative circumstance. He was living from a place that believed that he had to hoard money and work his fingers to the bone, or he was going to starve to death, basically. And many people operate from that place. And my whole point here is that there's just a better way. Both poverty and wealth can be the result of the influence of a spirit. I'm not saying that everyone who's in poverty is agreeing with a spirit of poverty, and I'm not saying that everybody who's wealthy is in agreement with the spirit of wealth. I think it's a more complex issue than that. But for me, I grew up I learned as I grew up to partner with poverty, and that was the only infrastructure that I knew how to actually live my life within. So I'll talk a little bit about the nature of both of these spirits. Poverty basically is going to employ a few different tactics to create an infrastructure of poverty in your life. An infrastructure of poverty in your life basically looks like living paycheck to paycheck, going into debt for expenses that are necessary, and like making bad decisions with your money on a regular basis. Those things are indicative of a belief system that is aligned with the poverty spirit. And it really all comes from that fear that I won't have enough in the future. I better blow this $10,000 right now because I won't have it in the future. And actually, it's so counterintuitive and so weird that that's how it works. But it's that fear of not having enough in the future that causes people every single year to spend their tax return on gaming consoles. The biggest time of year for gaming console sales is tax season. Can you believe that? And the reason is because these people are living paycheck to paycheck, and then they finally get their little tax return, which is a bump in their income, and now they have enough to go and get a console. The thing is if they saved like 20 bucks a month, like 30 bucks a month, they'd be able to get a console without having to wait for like their tax return. So let's talk a little bit about what wealth does. Wealth partners with the truth that God is our provider. Wealth recognizes that Jehovah Jireh speaks. If the Lord's name is Jehovah Jireh, it speaks to his nature. As he identifies himself to us as the one who provides, he's actually committing to be the one who's going to provide for us. And he says that he loves to give good gifts to his children, and he loves to provide for our needs and our wants. He's a provider by his nature. Wealth partners with the truth that God is a provider by his nature. Wealth believes I'll always have enough, and therefore I'm empowered to build. So here's the dynamic, the difference between poverty and wealth. Poverty borrows from your future self. Wealth invests into your future self. Wealth builds, poverty tears down preemptively. Yeah. And there's another dynamic actually that plays into both of these spheres. And one of the most powerful ways to break agreement with the spirit of poverty, if you're stuck in that poverty cycle, one of the best ways to break agreement is to connect with the voice of God and to activate generosity. Generosity, authentic generosity, attracts the spirit of wealth. It attracts prosperity. It attracts abundance to your life. And I know that it feels a little bit counterintuitive, but I'm telling you, there is a spiritual function to generosity. You know, if you've been on this channel for any amount of time, you know that I talk about generosity a lot. And it's because I've seen its effect in my life. When I partnered my heart and my money with authentic, radical generosity, I started to see massive financial miracles happening in my life. So where generosity attracts the spirit of wealth to your life, stinginess attracts lack and poverty to your life. My friend that I talked about earlier in this video, who had a ton of money and a lot of fear, he had accumulated that money not by partnering with wealth, but by partnering with stinginess. And so the thing is whatever you build with dysfunction, you're going to have to maintain with dysfunction. So I'm trying to empower us to tear down the dysfunctional poverty mindsets that allow us to actually partner with wealth that doesn't come with like horrible cost to our families and to ourselves. Calling stinginess wisdom is folly. Calling generosity wisdom is wisdom. Calling stinginess wisdom is actually not partnering with naivety. We'll get onto that some other time though. In 2 Corinthians 9, Paul's talking about how he doesn't really care how much he has. He's learned to live in like abject poverty, not like partnered with poverty, but like he's learned to live with very little. And he's also learned to live with abundance. And he doesn't really care which one he's in because he can do all things through Christ who strengthens him. But he's talking to the Corinthians about how generous they've been. And he's talking about how he's happy to receive them giving to him because he knows what happens in the spirit realm when people activate their generosity. And so he's excited for them. But, you know, he brings up a very important part of this whole poverty and wealth dynamic. He says, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows in abundance will also reap in abundance. It's a spiritual truth, and it has to do with your relationship with your future self. If you're constantly taking withdrawals from your future self, you won't have enough in the future. If you're constantly investing in your future self, you're going to build, and it's going to grow, and it's going to grow exponentially eventually. So yeah, I'm just going to leave you with that. Let's go forward and let's release the nature of Jesus in the earth. Let's release the nature of wealth in our lives so that we can have more than enough to give into the kingdom of God and promote the gospel of Jesus Christ. So thank you so much for watching these videos. I really appreciate you coming to my YouTube channel. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I would love it if you would like, share, comment, and subscribe. There should be a subscribe bubble right here. And if you'd like to see a video of me doing acoustic sessions, I think there's probably something just up here. Thanks for coming out. Bless you.